Shout out to this fan for coming up with the idea to this video on Snapchat. If you have any cool ideas for a future video, let me know in the comments below or snap me at net_alliance on Snapchat. You might just get a shout out.
3, 2, 1.
What's up, Net Soldiers? I am the Net Alliance, and today we're asked the question, what if I wrote Star Wars Episode 7? What would I change? What would I keep the same? How much different would Episode 7 be from The Force Awakens? But before I begin, I'm on Patreon, so if you feel like being awesome and you like to support the channel, there will be a link in the description below. You can check that out, I'd appreciate it. Also, if you enjoyed this theory and you'd like to see more, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications by hitting that little bell button beneath this video, so you can get more videos just like this one. But without further ado, let's begin. So right off the bat, I feel like I should say this. The video's title is What If Star Wars Episode 7 Was Good? But that doesn't mean that The Force Awakens was necessarily bad. But I personally feel it could have been better. So let's see if I can fix it. Jumping right in, I would change a lot. In fact, I would take different aspects from the previous EU that was already established that is now Legends to create my alternate Episode 7. So right away, I would wipe the slate clean of The Force Awakens characters and plot. Our story would begin on Yavin 4, where the Jedi have built their new Jedi Academy. This would also take place 30 years after Return of the Jedi, just to coincide with Luke's age, or I should say Mark Hamill's age. So Luke is our headmaster of the new Jedi Order, and he would begin to feel ripples in the Force. He contacts his other Jedi Masters, and they agree they all feel something in the Force, but they don't know what it is exactly. However, they keep it amongst themselves until they can have a better understanding of what this power is. After this, we meet our protagonists. We have Ben Skywalker, Jacen Solo, and Jaina Solo. These three characters I pulled from the popular Thrawn trilogy, which I personally felt was fitting due to the fact that the Thrawn trilogy was originally considered Episode 7, 8, and 9 in a lot of fans' eyes. Now throughout this film and the next two, we would see these kids become adults and face life in different ways. Ben, at age 16, would be our main character, named after Ben Kenobi by his father Luke Skywalker, which makes more sense in my opinion because Kylo being named Ben doesn't really make sense since Han and Leia didn't really know who Obi-Wan was very well. You know, they kind of knew him, but they didn't really know him. Unless that's explained in a future Rebels episode, but I don't think it's going to be. However, to me, it seems more better if Luke were to name his son Ben, in my opinion, in honor of his fallen master and friend. So Ben Skywalker would be our hero, slowly tapping into the dark side, but still mostly relying in the middle of the light and the dark. Next, we'd have Jaina Solo at 17. She would be our warrior of the light and always seemed to be positive, acting as kind of the moral glue of the group. And then there's her brother, Jacen Solo, at age 18. He is the leader of our crew, and is a year older than Jaina and 2 years older than Ben. And although he tries to do the right thing, sometimes things don't always go as planned, and he delves into the dark side to ease his emotions. But of course, he keeps that secret to himself. So these three are our heroes, and as the films progress, we see each dive deeper on their path. Jaina would remain in the light, Jacen would feel the lure of the dark side, and Ben would be torn in between. So let's get back to our story. Eventually, Jacen would feel a calling to Morban and leave the Jedi Temple on Yavin 4 along with Jaina and Ben. Now at first, Jaina would try to stop them, but Jacen wouldn't budge, and she didn't want anything to happen to them, so she decided to go with them. However, for Ben, he was just kind of bored of just sitting around and doing nothing. He used to hear tales of the Jedi and the Sith and how they used to battle in the Clone Wars. And although he was against war, he kind of longed for something different. So he decided to go along on the adventure. So all three would go, and I guess R2-D2 can go along too because we can have a droid in there too, and everyone loves R2-D2, so we'll throw him in there. But first, they make R2 promise not to tell Luke, so we have that figured out. Jacen's father, Han Solo, had taught him how to fly from a young age. The three would have a discussion about how they miss Han, and this is when we find out that Han actually died. Jacen remarks that he will still find that bounty hunter that killed him and make him pay. Jaina, following her Jedi teachings, would tell her brother not to let his anger get the better of him, but much of Jacen's anger began when his father was killed a few years prior. After a while, they arrive on Morvan. The dark side was corrupted over the planet. They follow Jacen, and eventually they come across a dark acolyte, who then reveals that he needs to get to Luke now. Of course, our heroes are a little put off by this, but then they are attacked by these wicked creatures. They were almost demon-like in sight, with goblin faces and black spiky armor. The Jedi use their lightsabers to guide the stranger back to their ship, and they all escape. On the outer rim, a planet is seen. Then, a massive ship entered its atmosphere. The ship released thousands of dropships, and the attackers invaded the planet in a matter of days. The world was captured. That night, Luke awoke in his sleep in a panic, startling his wife, Mara Jade. She asked him what was wrong. He said he didn't know, but inside, he could feel thousands of lives dying, Luke knew something was very, very wrong. Jason, Jaina, and Ben try to get information from the Dark Acolyte, but he claims he will only reveal the truth to Luke. Just then, a massive ship crosses their path. Luckily, it's a Republic cruiser, and on board was General Leia Organa. You see, Leia was always into politics, but once the Empire fell, she chose to lead the military. She took a few years off to raise her children, but now that Luke housed Jaina and Jason at the temple, and Han Solo was gone, all she does now is work. Jason and the others were brought on board, where they were happy to see Leia. After a brief discussion, they explained where they found the Dark Acolyte. They then asked why Leia was on a battlecruiser so far on the Outer Rim. She explained that an Outer Rim planet had sent a distress call, but the transmission was cut off before it could be finished, and any attempt to reach the planet has proved futile. The Acolyte started laughing, poking fun at how unprepared the galaxy is. Leia asked, "Unprepared for what?" He looked her right in the eyes and said, "The Yuuzhan Vong." So the movie would continue and essentially be the introduction of the galactic war between the Jedi and Republic against the Yuuzhan Vong and the new powerful Sith Empire. And we eventually learn that this new big bad Sith is actually responsible for influencing the Yuuzhan Vong and attacking the galaxy, who's essentially, I guess you could say he's Snoke, except for not Snoke, but I guess he could be Snoke, so we could say that. However, like I said, instead of being like Snoke or Palpatine where they actually fought for control of the galaxy, this would be an ancient Sith who is pure evil, and would want nothing more but to annihilate all life in the galaxy. Like I said, making him truly evil for really not having a purpose for wanting to do it, he just kind of wants to do it. Which, like I said, makes him really evil. Now eventually they get a hold of Luke, and the Dark Acolyte would kind of tell him what's going on, and explain to everyone exactly who the Yuuzhan Vong is, as well as what this new empire is planning on doing. Now on this Outer Rim planet, there is actually an outpost that is still holding off against the Yuuzhan Vong. So our heroes go to save these people. And of course, leading these Yuuzhan Vong creatures are actually people who are Sith, essentially. Now they're not the big bad Sith, but I guess you could say they're Sith followers, or maybe even Sith acolytes. So they're there too. And by the end, we see some lightsaber fights. Maybe one of the stronger Siths take on both Ben and Jason, and maybe even Jaina. And right before they're about to die, they get saved by Luke, and then we can truly see just how powerful Luke has become. Maybe he uses a force push or some type of force ability that actually annihilates a bunch of enemies or something, which would be really cool. And so our heroes would actually save the stranded. However, Jason's Solo would stay behind and allow himself to be captured in attempts to actually tear the Sith Empire down before it could really attack and destroy the galaxy. However, in the next films, we began to see that he enjoyed the Sith a little too much, and we would kind of see that flesh out a little bit more. Now, by the end of the film, Luke would be preparing his Jedi to fight like they did in the Clone Wars, reintroducing the Master and Padawan way of things. Like I said, Jason would be captured by the Sith, Jaina would go with her mother to Coruscant to prepare for a massive war, and Ben Skywalker would train with his new master, Kyle Katarn. From here, we would see what the war does to our heroes. The 8th film would take place during the war, and the 9th film would take place at the end of the war. So overall, that is how I would have wrote episode 7 if I was the actual creator. One thing that seems to be a big complaint among fans is that episode 7 is a lot like episode 4. It's essentially a reboot, I guess you could say a fan fiction of episode 4. That's what I say at least. And yeah, they're very similar. You know, the prequels get a lot of crap for different reasons, but one thing you can't complain about is at least they were different from the original trilogy. And the fact that all original 6 films in the Star Wars saga are at least different, and you can completely tell them apart. But honestly, episode 7 is very much like episode 4. So the reasons why I really like my episode 7, besides the fact that I wrote it and I think it's really good, is because it feels completely different, it gives us interesting characters, it gives good fan service to the original fans of the EU and the Legends, which I feel The Force Awakens is kinda lacking on, and in the end, we actually get to see how much powerful Luke has become since Return of the Jedi. Plus, it's the beginning of a massive war, because the Clone Wars and the Galactic Civil War were just a war in the galaxy. But now this is essentially the galaxy versus this invader that's gonna be taking over everything and destroying everything. It doesn't care. So it reintroduces the Star Wars, and it introduces a whole new element into it, because this isn't just good or bad, or light or dark. This is literally life or death. If our heroes don't succeed, the entire galaxy will be destroyed by this new Sith threat. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I had tons of fun creating it. For those who stuck around till the end, you guys rock. But let me know what you guys think. Do you like this version of episode 7? Is it better than The Force Awakens? Let me know in the comments below. Please remember to like and subscribe for more videos, and until next time guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.